Wow. Heard a lot about Canadians tonight. And I've got a bone to pick with some of the Canadians. That's exactly it. Where's the Canadians with their engineering ring? Stan, put yours up. Dennis, have you got what? Who's got? See, they're all over the room. Okay, where's Richard Damacour? Is he out there? Where is he? There he is in the back. These guys, Bruce and Richard, promised me last year they were going to sponsor me to get a Canadian ring. They said it'd be a piece of cake. All you have to do is fill out an application. They lied. I filled out that application. I submitted it. I called them. They didn't call me back, so I stayed after them. They finally relented and called me back and said, listen, we can't just give you a Canadian ring. You have to go through some hoops. I said, well, what do you mean some hoops? So first you have to come to Canada and participate in one of our sports. I'm thinking, okay, what sport? It's this thing called ice fishing. I'm a southern guy. I'm thinking you put an ice cube on a hook and you throw it in. So I said, okay, I can do that. So I called my friend Bruce. So I said, hey, can I come up? Can I go ice fishing with you? He said, sure, come on up. So I'd never been to Canada. It's a strange place. I thought I should ask some questions. And if you hadn't been to Canada, maybe some of Bruce's replies will help you as well if you're interested in going. First thing I want to know, would I see polar bears? Bruce said, well, it depends on how much you've been drinking. And then I said, okay, well, how about on Animal Planet? I've seen you guys have this like big horse with some horns on it. And he said, yep, we call it a moose, but it's very dangerous. But if you cover yourself with human pee, they'll leave you alone. Now, this is helpful information to know. However, it would have been more helpful to know that if you take a spray bottle of your human pee through TSA security, does not go very well. Now, see, I'm glad I got to share that with you because Bruce made this connection with a Canadian astronaut. And so I just made a connection with an American astronaut because both of us talked about pee at a dinner meeting. So, we have something in common. Last thing I asked Bruce, I said, this is important. I said, I have heard, you guys may not be aware of this, I have heard they speak multiple languages in Canada. So I said, will I be able to speak English up there? And he said, absolutely, just as soon as you learn how. But I did go to Canada. If we could put the PowerPoint back up. And Beth, his wife, was a gracious host, and I actually got a picture of us ice fishing. It was late spring, so it wasn't quite the sport that I expected, but it still worked out well. So I came back and I said, hey guys, I took that test. You got to give me that ring. And they said, wait a minute, not so fast. You got to take a test that proves you know something about Canada. And I'm thinking, what's there to know about Canada? So I took the test. It's a hard test. I flunked the spelling section. I couldn't spell honor, color, meter, labor. Oh, and let me tell you, the bonus, can anybody spell Saskatchewan? I mean, it sounds like a made-up word. And if that wasn't hard enough, the multiple choice, oh my gosh. It seemed to me a logical guess that Tim Horton was the president of Canada. And it turns out Pike is not a highway. And Pop is not the guy I called 3 days ago to say Happy Father's Day to. So needless to say, I didn't do so well on that test, but I've been studying, guys, my Canadian friends. I'm not giving up. I'm going back. I've learned some things just to prove it to you. What fashion accessory goes best with a parka? Shorts. Why is it better to drive in Canada in the winter? Because the potholes are full of snow. See, I'm learning. What do you need to think about when you're buying a Halloween costume in Canada for a child there? Will it fit over the snowsuit? And finally, what are the 4 seasons in Canada? You have almost winter, winter, still winter, and road construction. Stan, did I do okay? I do want to take a moment to thank Rob and the staff for making this such a fun and wonderful organization to be a part of. Rob, could you come up? And everybody, let's give him a hand. Step over here just for a second. Okay. Big target on your back. You know, I don't know if you know it, but I'm going to be traveling with Rob some this year. I don't think he has any idea what he's in store for.
Plenty of bugs.
Yeah. But Rob has taught me some things. One thing he's taught me that it's important that if you want to be successful in life, it's important that you dress like your heroes. So I thought, so that he could continue the tradition as we travel, Beth and I had a little gift for him I'd like to give. So,
there you go, sir. Thank you very much. I have a feeling. There you go. That's it, right?
That's it. Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Let's see if he says that at the end of the year. Now, Ray DeBose told me, he said, Tim, you know, when you're MC, you get to be funny. But when you give a chairman's acceptance speech, you're both supposed to be serious. I told Ray that's not really in my wheelhouse. But I'm going to try. And part of being a chairman is you have to come up with a theme for the year. And that was a lot tougher than I thought. So the first thing I did is I looked back at some past themes, and some of the good ones, like Bruce had mentioned, have been taken. So, such as bringing sexy back to district energy. That one's already gone. So I thought, you know, I'm going to look to inspiration from some of the past chairmen that I've learned from. The first one is Joe Brillhart. Joe, seriously, you probably don't remember, but your last year on the executive committee was my first. So I got to learn for a year from watching you and seeing what you did and learning wisdom from you. And you had this saying that really inspired me, and some of you may have heard it. He seemed to say it over and over. If you remember the 60s, you weren't there. And as I looked more into Joe's past, I found that he wasn't kidding. Joe, you really were there, weren't you? And yeah, you don't remember a thing. We believe you. And the next chairman that inspired me quite a bit was Ken Smith, the consummate professional. I mean, so we've got some people that work for Ken here. Have you ever seen this guy not in a suit? I mean, I think he sleeps in a suit. He is just pure businessman. But he had a saying, too, that I heard him say a lot that stuck with me, and it was, my wife is a miracle worker. I was thinking, no, I met his wife, you know, and I'm certainly impressed, but I didn't fully grasp that statement until I looked into Ken's past and realized he really has come a long ways. In fact, he's hung out with some pretty rough characters in his life. So, Julie, all I can say is wow. But if there's a past chairman that has inspired us all, that has just been an anchor and has just had many things to say that are memorable, it has to be Mr. Swenson. I mean, this guy, he's such an integral part of the organization. He also had a saying, and primarily we tend to hear this saying when he's on stage behind this microphone, and it's, why do I get so emotional every time I'm on stage? And I think last year as we delved into his past, we began to understand some of the reasons behind that as well. So, I think you better bring that towel back to him. I think they're starting to come again, so. So not going to the next, there we go. There we go. So I get it, Steve, that estrogen just kind of takes over after a while, doesn't it? But you three gentlemen inspired me. Let's see if we're going, there we go. towards a theme for this year. And actually, Tanya has a gift for you. And she's going to pass out. If you would wait to open it till we get to it. So I wanted a theme that was memorable, hadn't been used before, was practical, and that could really change our organization for the better. So guys, if you would, there's a little tear thing there. You see that? If you would tear your gift. Just go ahead. You can open it. It's all right, Steve. The theme for this year is, if you put the slides back up, mandatory drug testing for all board members. It's catchy, isn't it? It's practical. Yep. And actually, we're going to get started tonight. Tanya, my assistant, she's going to take you out each one by one to make sure there's no cheating going on. There is a line there, Steve. Just fill to the line. And Tanya, I didn't forget you. I got some gloves if there's any spillage, so we make sure that that's good. I see Joe laughing because I know he's thinking the same thing I am. We really don't have to test him to know how the results are going to turn out now, do we? But although we solved one mystery of why Mr. Swenson cries every time he comes on stage, we've really created another one. Tonight, is he going to have to stand or squat to fill this cup? So, you know, perhaps Tanya, Steve, some things are just best left as a mystery, so we'll let that one go. I do have a backup theme in case that one doesn't fly. And I got my inspiration by looking back at some of the past themes over the last dozen years or so. And actually, Bob, my colleague back there, it was your theme from 2006, 2007 that stuck out at me, and it was sustain, energize, grow. And at the time, we only had 800 members. So 9 years later, we have almost 3 times that many members. So when you think about it, his theme was very prophetic. It was also the first theme to mention sustain or sustainability. And building off of that theme, I came up with sustaining our success. And when I first talked to Rob about this theme, he said, I don't know, Tim, it sounds like we're bragging on ourselves. And I countered, I said, you know, Rob, if you look at any reasonable metric of our organization, nobody could argue that we've been successful, especially over the last 20 years. And I was actually thinking about it from terms our local office in North Carolina started, it'll be 20 years ago this fall. And when we started, it was just 2 or 3 people, and now we have over 60 people in North Carolina. It's grown, it's been very successful, and our people are very excited about that. Matter of fact, we just made the biggest engineering list in our area recently, so they're very excited and proud about that. And it's come from the fact that we have a lot of talented, hardworking, committed people, but that's the same reason that IDA has been successful. We have a lot of talented volunteers and staff that have worked hard to make this organization successful. But in preparing for our anniversary in North Carolina, I did a little research and found out that if you go back 20 years ago and look at that list of biggest firms in our area, none of them are there anymore, or none of them are on that list. You know, achieving success is one thing. Sustaining success is a whole different thing. And to be part of an organization that's over 100 years old is something. And that's a gift and a responsibility we've had in our hands that we need to focus on making sure continues into the future. To do that, we have to continue to think long term. We have to be relevant in terms of sustainability. Just like the energy crisis of the 70s forever changed our business, the sustainability movement of the last decade is forever changing how we'll do business in the future. It's not a fad. we are not moving towards a world that is going to be less focused on sustainability. This creates a real opportunity for our organization, but we have to be relevant and we have to be there for the sustainability organizations that need information on our industry. We need to be their go-to resource for all things district energy. And the other thing is we have to be relevant to the next generation, this millennial generation. The oldest millennials now, believe it or not, are 36 years old. And they are starting to become an important part of our organization. But we're going to have a successful handoff to them for the next generation. Now, are we going to be able to do that? I did a little research, and based on what I can tell, since IDEA was founded, we've had members from 10 different generations over time. So we've had a lot of successful handoffs. But this generation is very different. Our firm was doing master planning for one of our member institutions, and the sustainability director, who was a millennial, came into the meeting and said, "CHP, are you kidding me? That's so 20th century." So I was like, wow, these guys are thinking differently, and we have to be ready to respond to that. So just to close, I want to thank two people in particular. The first is Bob Smith. Bob, as I was preparing for this, I realized I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you. Back in '97, Bob came to me and said, "Hey, you're doing some interesting things in district energy. Why don't you come to IDEA and talk about them?" And I never heard about it. That opened the door to a new world for me. And when I came after a couple of years of watching Bob, I'm like, why do you volunteer so tirelessly for that organization? I'll never forget, Bob said, "I have never given anything to IDEA that I didn't get much more in return." And I believe it's that attitude that you have lived out in front of me that led to the award that you so deservingly got tonight. Bob, thanks for being my mentor, for being my friend. I'm getting a little emotional up here. I think some of Steve is still kind of on this podium or something. I saved the best for last, my wife. It's best to thank your wife last in a speech, because that way she's got to squirm the whole speech, and you just don't get that many opportunities to take advantage of that. One thing I've seen in this organization that I have in common with Rob and Ken Smith and Bruce and Steve and so many others, and I learned tonight, even talking to Werner, that we all have something in common. When we got married, we way outpunted our coverage. And as I was thinking about it, we looked at the funny pictures of Ken and of Joe back in the day, but I was an 18, 19, young 20-year-old, and I could not envision this back then. I did not envision the success I would have in business, in my family, or in life at that age. And I think for most of you, if you think back to when you were that age, you probably feel the same. And I can tell you, I know that I am here because a woman said yes to a question over 20 years ago that has greatly changed my life. And I think that for a lot of you, that's been the exact same thing. So, honey, thank you for all you did to make me who I am, and to support me, and to love me, to kick me in my butt when I needed it, and to be there. So, you're the best. Finally, I want to end with thanking all of the members here of IDEA for entrusting me with the important role of being your chairman of your organization over the next 12 months.